the incident, the only videotaping of the incident from being released to the police. That takes courage. Because a lot of us would say, no, here you go, whatever you need, we'll be of assistance. And without this taping, we wouldn't have the insight into Mr. Ray's unfortunate demise of what happened just before. Very important piece, and again, that says a lot about who you are, so we just need to give you a round of applause. So I also want to say that every important event in my life has to begin and end by seeking the will of God. And I tell you what, if God doesn't say do it, then I don't do it. As a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Free Press International, I know that I stand amongst friends. And yes, we do have to make sure that after this day is over with, after this moment is over with, that we continue to put a measurement on the table, that we continue to move on and think about what we need to do progressively, because I tell you, Brother T.O. and Mark Clemens and folks who have been on the front lines with me for many, many years will tell you that, a lot of times we come to these meetings and then after that, there's nothing that happens, right, Brother Pearson? That's right. And, we gotta make sure that we stay connected, and it's all about connecting the dots, which one attorney actually said, and I agree with connecting the dots. My words that I want to speak are going to be very, very brief. A little bit about me, because I think credibility always means a lot. And the people who've known me for years, Mark Clemens knew me when I was working on the East Coast. We overturned the youngest person executed in U.S. history, which is the George City case. Myself and T.O. were advocates working in defense of Tamir Rice. Lady advocates, T.O. will tell you. Right now I'm working with the Alton Sterling family in the Alton Sterling case. And it's unfortunate that this is a resume of some sort. To me, it shouldn't be. To me, it's about the killing of our people. Yeah. And to me, this is what has to change. For me to even have a resume like that, I'm not actually that's credentials, I'm not proud of it. What I am saying is that we have to find a way for this to stop. And how do we do it? Well, I'll tell you what. Here's a theory. The theory that I feel is very pertinent is that we have to begin to think in terms of tribalistically, right? Tribalistically means you and I have to get together and we have to go block by block, house by house, section by section, and start communicating. It's not being done. It hasn't been done. We have to do it. We have to start today. I tell you what, when we started out 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you didn't see, even 3 years ago, we had Trayvon Martin, we had a couple of different cases that were spread out over the communities, both nationally and locally. But now you're seeing these cases pop up every week. Every day is another case. It's another case of a young black man shot down. Number one, one of the things that I want to say is we are still under the verge of, we are still under the guidance of, we are still under the policies of a constitution that when it was made, it wasn't made for folks like you and I. It was made for what we call WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. That's what a WASP is. And those folks didn't even look like the folks that you see in the Senate today, or white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who were rich, wealthy landbearers. And what they wanted to do is they made this constitution so they can keep rule. The Dred Scott decision, we're still under the auspices of Dred Scott. Dred Scott means that basically all of us are 1/5 of a human, 1/3 of a human being. That still exists today. That rule is still, those laws are still on the books. They have not been taken off the books. We are considered 1/3 of a human being, and they treat us like that. Who knew that? Did you know that? That Dred Scott is still on the books. So if you are an African American, you are considered less than a dog, less than some of the livestock, less than the horses. Even as of November of 2016, Dred Scott is still on the books. We have to eliminate that. We have to begin to understand the laws. And I know folks say, we're protesting is good, protesting, we're out there, we're standing on the front lines, and we're making our voices heard. Well, I tell you what, in my prior history, 20 years as an investigator, I spent 20 years as a financial fraud investigator. I didn't do murder cases, but I spent 20 years as an investigator. And I tell you what, we have to know the laws, and we have to be able to change these laws. We have not taken one of these cases to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, not one. Can somebody tell me of a police brutality case within the last 10 years that went to the Supreme Court? None, not one. We have to do it. We have to be able to change the laws. I'm sorry?
You gotta stop selling out for that dollar.
And I understand that the economic principle is that we have to start selling out for the dollar, but then too, if our dollars over us, if we had an empowerment, if we had financial empowerment, then I tell you what, that would be a lot of, a huge part of this. We don't own our own businesses. So our voices doesn't mean anything. If I can say, Ron, Mr. Ron, 2 years, in 2 minutes, 20 minutes, I'm going to put 1,000 people at your door. And it happened. Do you think that he would respect me? Do you think that he would think differently about things that we haven't come together and we haven't organized at that level. I know that it's been people out, it's been groups that may have 300 people, 200 people in one pop. I know we went down to Michigan Avenue and we marched. I'm not diminishing anybody's role in this. Everybody's role has to count, but we have to be more strategic about how we're doing things. And if there's no measurement behind it, if it's just about having a voice, there's nothing there. I want to end by reading because I don't want to take up too much time. I want to read a letter that I actually sent to Mr. Emmanuel, and I want to thank everybody for being here. You know, I see a lot of people, Mark Clemens, I see Helen back there, Q, Quintus, all of everybody, Grant. Folks, we've been on the front lines and we've been doing the same thing for the last, how long now? Probably the last 3 years that I know about for sure, because that's how long I've been back in Chicago. The question that I think that we have to answer is, what is it going to take to make the change? What does it take to change? Now, how long ago? About 30 minutes ago, there was another shooting. Yeah. When we came over here. Yeah, at the bus. On
63rd and Ashland.
Yeah. We can't change what's in everybody's heart. But I tell you what, if we stood together and if we came together, then I'm going to guarantee you that we can change a lot. We can change a lot, and we got to be able to think about these conversations. And we have to be able to impress upon this new generation, this younger generation, that if we don't change now, then we will be short. And I know that there's some folks who disagree with this statement, but it can't just be about the Black community. It's got to be about connecting the dots. It's got to be about going with our brothers overseas. I know a lot of people have been standing with the Indians and Standing Rock. Even Latinos, white people who care, white people who want to be a part of this movement. We can't isolate anybody who is a person in the spirit that's willing to move with us. And once we start doing that, then we lose. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to read this letter, and then I'm going to conclude once it comes up. Economic empowerment is a huge part of the movement, and we haven't even started to touch the base of that. So here's the letter. This letter was sent Sunday night. I sent it to Ron's personal email and to his City Hall email. And then he had an email, a private email that he made, which, I don't know, these guys are making private emails. I know we know the government doesn't even get emails, right? He doesn't have an email address because they don't want to write him. But, dear Ron, in the many days prior to this, I have spoken to you through a choosing method of public discourse such as media. As the president of my organization and the local leader of the SCLC Freedom First International, which has numerous affiliated organizations throughout the country, I would hope that you would accommodate any suggestions offered purely as a means to provide hope for the
suffering and oppression in our community. For the record, the efforts that you've made downtown have made a noticeable difference. For this accomplishment, I know many would appreciate. I would also ask that you remain aware of the continued efforts of those on the ground and impoverished communities and continue to reach out and bring new ideas to the table outside of the groups which you already have a long-standing, comfortable relationship. Even if those groups don't embrace your office and your position as Chicago mayor. You must now find ways to encourage our thousands of African Americans to participate in a unique Chicago experience, to secure and entrench themselves, or you will find yourself in a development which will inevitably lead to a growing racial and political nightmare. For purposes of clarification, what we are seeing is the growing divide in the city amongst racial lines, a fact which I'm sure you already know, but in the aftermath of growing internal violence, repeated community violence, and growing dissatisfaction that grows above political discourse, many of us would hope for immediate attention. For example, besides blatant discrimination in the use of offensive menacing actions such as Mount Greenwood protests that was led by Blue Lives Matters, many of the group were Chicago police officers who had lamented persistent racial insensitivity, which was demeaning, and at the same time they were wearing police colors. Facts would show that many who stood in the ranks were police. The problem that exists is, in that case, if those officers are the same ones who patrol our Black and minority communities with the same blatant racist tendencies, I would ask that you simply sanction racism coming from within the ranks of the Chicago Police Department. While you may say that that policy is already in place, urgent times require an urgent, consistent reminder effort. If those officers are the same ones who patrol the Black and minority communities, I, for one, would be interested in further investigation to see if those officers had any racial discrepancies or disciplinary actions in their file, a move which my organization is willing to support. Lastly, shifting the police on staffing on demographics. Black officers will be better equipped to handle Black citizens on a psychological level in Black areas, a move which may help quell the number of police-involved shootings in the Black community. Lastly, I was referring to, as I suggested, thousands of African Americans participate in a unique Chicago experience. I would ask that you would consider rebuilding CAPS to provide cultural sensitivity and cater special emphasis to the more areas that are challenged. Also, my organization partners with a press conference outside of the police district 7 on November 26th of 2016. There we ask you to please, without hesitation, roll body cameras at challenged districts like District 7 for reasons which no further explanation is needed. I will end by saying all public displays by protesters, protection by the police, are in stark contrast to the typical treatment that most Blacks and minority citizens experience. And please promote those moments as they are good for public relations and will help preserve the community. Thank you for what you are doing in the area of downtown, but we need your help in the hood. Yeah. Thank y'all.